Hello and welcome to this week's video. Before we get into it, here's something most painters don't realise. Red is often the reason your colours aren't working, even when nothing looks red. It takes over mixes, flattens shadows and turns muddy fast, yet it sits underneath almost every warm tone you paint. In today's video, I will show you how the key to painting this spaniel correctly actually lies in my use of red. Let's jump straight into the video. You're probably thinking at this stage that spaniel is orange, and yes, technically it is, but there's a lot of red in that orange, and it is impossible to get those glossy warms without understanding how red behaves. Number one, why red is problematic. Red is the warmest colour on the colour wheel. Translated into paint, this red would be my cadmium red. Cadmium red behaves differently to any other colour as it is very unforgiving colour to work with, and it is very prevalent in my colour mixing for this painting. Cadmium red is my warm red, but ideally I should have a cool red on my palette too. I use alizarin crimson. This red sits here on the colour wheel. Again, it's a very dominant colour in this painting. It's not as difficult to use as cadmium red as it's transparent rather than opaque. Because of this opacity, cadmium red overpowers everything. A tiny amount of red will dominate a mix in a way that blue or yellow simply won't, by changing values, temperatures, saturation and colour. Because of this, I choose to have a warm transparent red on my palette as well, in the form of transparent red oxide. Red is the hardest colour to lighten. Add white and you get pink. This is not what we want. It is equally hard to darken. Add black and it goes flat and dead immediately. Add too much of another dark colour and it just turns brown. This is why I have my transparents on my palette. They hold their tinting strength better when being lightened and are much easier to use when working with dark black reds. Most painters don't realise that red is causing their problems. They think their mix is wrong or their technique is off, but actually it is the red that is fighting them. And here is the thing. Even if you are not painting something obviously red, red is probably still in your painting. Warm fur, chestnut tones, earth colours, skin colours. Red is at the heart of all these. So understanding how red behaves is not just useful for painting red things, it will improve every warm mix you make. Number 2, understanding red on the colour wheel. The first thing to understand is that red is not just one colour. Every red on your palette has a bias, and that bias changes everything about how it behaves in a mix. Some reds lean warm, they pull towards orange. Cadmium red is a good example of this. Some reds lean cool, they pull towards purple. Alizarin crimson sits in this camp. This matters enormously because the red you pick as your starting point will determine where your mixes go. For this spaniel, I am working with cadmium red, alizarin crimson and transparent red oxide. They all do different jobs. Number 3, reference photo. Let's have a look at the reference photo and see what we can observe. First of all, this colour is very saturated. There is no way you will be able to make those chestnut browns without a variety of reds. We are also going to need a variety of yellows too. Exactly the same as my red palette, I'll need a warm and a cool yellow plus a transparent yellow. Secondly, we have a number of value changes. If I turn this photo into black and white, you'll see this more clearly. We have some very dark colours around the jawline and under the ears. We'll need our transparent colours for these areas because they can be easily mixed into dark colours without affecting value. We then have our midtones, so our cadmium colours will feature more prominently here simply because of the saturation of that colour. And lastly, we have our light areas where we'll need white plus a combination of all our other colours. Thirdly, we have a number of temperature shifts from warm to cool. The temperature shifts will not work if you just use white alone. You'll end up with a chalky looking painting. I'll need to add greens and blues to my warms if I want it to work. Remember, we have to paint what we see. Try printing your reference photo out, as this will make it easier to see those shifts. It's harder working from a backlit screen. Number 4, my palette. Let's now look at the colours I use for this painting. These are cadmium yellow light, yellow ochre light, transparent yellow oxide, cadmium red, alizarin crimson, transparent red oxide, ultramarine deep, and titanium zinc white. I have also mixed up a few other colours. These are a black red and a black green. I mixed these two together to make my rich black, a purple, 3 oranges and 2 other greens. These 5 are my warms, these 3 are my cools. Let's talk about my dark values first. These really dark areas are these 2 colours. I always alternate my temperatures between warm and cool. Remember, everything is relative to what it's next to. It's not either or. For example, red versus green. It's a range. So a red next to a yellow would still be a warmer colour next to a cooler colour. Yellow is cooler than red. Or a warm red next to a cool red. This is still a temperature shift, even though I'm using red. So where I have a cooler brown adjacent to my dark value, I will use more black red. Where I have a warmer colour, I use more green. I can also add white to these 2 colours to give me a purple that I use here. For my mid-tone values, I start with this colour as my base and then adjust it. Slightly darker but warm, I add this black red. A more saturated orange, and I add this orange and I use this yellow ochre to lighten it. Don't use white, this will kill your warm colour. Where it gets really warm and saturated, I can also use this orange, which has both my cadmium colours. Where I need to push my brown cooler, I add either of these 2 greens plus white, or a purple made from my black red plus black green plus trans yellow oxide plus white. It is this cool warm shift, saturated colour, desaturated colour, that will give you your glossy fur effect. For my light values, I am using 2 colours as my cools, either my black green plus white or my rich black plus white. Where I want to push this warm, I add either of my trans yellow oxide or this orange. This is just white straight from the tube. Number 5, the one rule about red. So after everything we have talked about today, if I had to boil it down to one rule, it would be this: red demands respect. More than any other colour on your palette, red will fight you if you don't understand it. Don't default to adding white to lighten it or black to darken it. Both of those will kill it immediately. Always ask yourself first, does this mix need to go warmer or cooler? That answer tells you what to add. And remember that red is rarely just red. In this spaniel, it was ochre, chestnut, cool shadow and warm highlight. All of that came from understanding how to push and pull the red rather than fighting against it. The painters who handle red well are not doing anything magical. They are just observing carefully and letting what they see lead their mixing. So observe first, mix second. Your palette should always follow your eye. If you would like to come and paint with me in oils, join my workshop on the 3rd of July. You'll find the link in the description below. There are also more details of lesson opportunities on my website, sarahhallidayart.com. If you found this video helpful, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss future painting tips. Thank you for watching and see you next week.